bear with me. The special master has accomplished in days what the legislature couldn't do in months. She's produced a fair map which prioritizes communities of interest and reflects the regional makeup of New York State. Judge Mann's proposal is a vast improvement over the self-serving interests of the legislature and reflects many of Common Cause's core principles in our own Common Cause reform map. Overall, Judge Mann drew a map which keeps regions whole and unites communities of interest. It's a very good alternative map. We think that it has a lot to recommend it. If there was any doubt about the court's effectiveness and ability to draw lines in the public interest, that question has been laid to rest with the way in which this proceeding has been conducted. So we're going to take a look at the map that the court has proposed. What we suggest, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the current congressional plan, and then we're going to look at the Common Cause proposal, and then we're going to look at what the court is suggesting. And as we did when we drew the maps, we're starting on Long Island, the eastern southern edge of the state. So here's what the current congressional plan looks like for Long Island. Peter King's district transects the north and south shore in a way that we have always felt does not make a lot of sense. Here's what we propose for the reform map. As you can see, we keep the north and the south shore separate based on communications that we've had with Long Islanders. So this is the Common Cause proposal, and now this is what the current proposal from the special master looks like. Nearly identical. Brian, the Common Cause proposal, and now the court's plan. So as you can see, Judge Mann, like Common Cause, recognized that Long Island communities identify primarily according to the North Shore and the South Shore. And appropriately, she drew lines that reflect reality, virtually duplicating the suggested Common Cause New York reform districts for New York, as I think our slideshow illustrates pretty clearly. Now we're going to take a look at New York City. This is the current congressional plan for New York City. And here is what Common Cause has proposed in our reform map for New York City. And now taking a look at the court's plan. And it's different in a number of areas from what we have proposed and similar in other places. Like the Common Cause reform map, the special master's proposals for New York 6 and 14 demonstrate how Hispanic and Asian representation can both be improved in Queens. You don't have to pit them against each other. You can improve both. New York 6 is very similar to the Common Cause Asian Influence District, which keeps Flushing and Elmhurst together. That's also very similar to the proposal from the Unity Plan that the civil rights groups put forward. The court's New York 8 combines the Rockaways with Gregory Meek's district, which is 5, as does the Common Cause reform plan. And here it's our reform 6. That means that Bob Turner and Congressman Meeks are both in the same district. In North Manhattan and the Bronx, which has been the subject of a lot of discussion and controversy, it appears to us that the special master's proposal builds on the cores of existing districts, which is a perfectly valid way in which to deal with the controversy between the African American and Latino representatives and groups in that area. New York 14 spans North Queens and the East Bronx, similar to the Common Cause Reform District for this area, which was our Reform District 5. And that district, as drawn by the court, has 45% Hispanic voting age population. The court's District 13, NY 13, is very similar to the existing Wrangell district, the current CD 15, although Judge Mann's proposal increases the Hispanic population and turns this into a majority Hispanic district with 52.5% Hispanic voting age population. So some interesting choices, certainly a map heavily influenced, as it should appropriately be, by the Voting Rights Act consideration. We're going to take a look at the Hudson area first. Here, we want to take a look at the current Engle district, which is the current CD17, that's yellow. What we call the Bronx to Bear Mountain district. A district that we thought was an interesting configuration, to put it mildly. Then taking a look at what we at Common Cause have suggested for this area of the state. As you can see, we significantly redraw the Engle district, which to make it much more regional in its configuration. It's our Reform Proposal 16. Now, taking a look at what the court has proposed for that district, it is the court's District 16, and it is similar to what we have proposed, very regional in its configuration. So as you can see, when you look at the overall map, here's the congressional map that has 22, Congressional District 22, which is the Hinchy district. In the Common Cause proposal, that was the district which, in essence, dissolved. And we recast the upstate map very much on a regionally based basis. That was really one of the motivating criteria that we tried to reflect in our map. So now, taking a look at the court's map, as you can see, New York 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 in the court's map closely follows the structure of the Common Cause Reform map for the North Bronx and Westchester, for the Hudson Valley, Catskills, Capital Region, and North Country. And the North Country has been a congressional district that's been the topic of a great deal of discussion, both in the press, among activists, and with the court. The proposal adopts virtually identically Common Cause's Reform Districts 25 for the Rochester area. Here is the current Rochester Congressional District. It's Congressional District 28, which Louise Slaughter is the representative in that district right now. And if you'll recall, it snakes all the way up along the river and picks up Buffalo, as well as Rochester in this earmuffed district. We have proposed that Rochester be its own congressional district, and this is what the court, this is our proposal, the Common Cause Reform proposal on the screen, and this is the court's proposal. As you can see, it is different. It differs by actually one census block from what we at Common Cause had proposed. And if you look at the Buffalo area, you can see what we have proposed in the Common Cause Reform map. First, we're going to start with this is how Buffalo is currently configured. Again, this green is this earmuffed district that snakes along the river and has Congresswoman Louise Slaughter representing both Buffalo and Rochester. In the Common Cause Reform Plan, this is what we suggested Buffalo's congressional district should look like. And now, taking a look at what the court has suggested, this is what the court has suggested Buffalo's congressional district should look like. In this instance, the court's plan differs from the Common Cause Reform proposal by 2 census blocks. So as you can see, this is a map which we believe has taken some ideas from a number of different places, and we are glad to see that some of the proposals which we put forth have been of use to the master in drawing the proposed redistricting plan for Congress that the court may well adopt. Any questions?
Folks, please identify your name and the outlet you're from. Thanks so much.
Do we unmute people?
Susan, Nick Reisman from Capitol Tonight.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, just wanted to get your take on and you talked a little bit about this in the webinar, but the communities of interest, especially in upstate, where a lot of these districts seem to be centered on cities of Rochester and Buffalo, and even in the North Country. What's your take on the whole communities of interest, and how does that go with what you guys proposed earlier this year?
It's very much the basis on which we sought to prepare and organize our map. And we think that the things in the court's maps are similar to what we have proposed, but the basic concept is very similar. And it's responsive to some of the things which we've heard at LAT4 hearings and at the court, that if we had done a revision to our plan, we probably would have incorporated, particularly around the Syracuse area, where we heard a lot of comments from local people about which smaller cities should or should not be in the same district with Syracuse. And so the master's map reflects what we were hearing from local people, and it's not something which we had yet adjusted our map to reflect.
And just as a follow-up, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said it's a good improvement. So your follow-up.
Just as a follow-up, and how does this go along with what you guys have been calling for in terms of having the courts draw this versus the other option of getting the governor to use his veto threat to produce fairer lines on a constitutional amendment?
Well, I think this shows that New Yorkers are well served by having a neutral, expert, third party drawing these district lines. This is a rational basis that almost anybody just looking at the court's proposed map can immediately recognize how the court was organizing the districts, what was important to the court, particularly upstate, looking at cities, looking at regions, and the speed with which the court was able to accomplish this, beating the deadline set by the three-judge panel, I think validates what various people, including Common Cause, have been saying, which is that the courts are a very valid alternative and indeed the best alternative for the voters in this redistricting cycle.
Hey, Susan. John Campbell with Gannett Newspapers. Is there anything in the special master's plan that jumps out at you as something that you don't like?
You know, I don't think there's any part of the special master's plan that we looked at and we said, oh, I don't know that the voters could live with that. I think this is a very fair balancing of a lot of different factors. And while this is not a map which is drawn to favor incumbents, because the master stayed with the core of existing congressional districts in New York City, it avoids a lot of the controversy created by our incumbent blind way of drawing, but also manages to advantage the minority communities that need to be protected under the Voting Rights Act. So I think it's a very, very good balancing of a lot of different ideas and factors. And there isn't any part of it where we looked at it and said, can't go with that.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions? Other parts of the state you want us to zero in on?
This is Brian Tumulty again at Washington Bureau. Ithaca and Tompkins County would be part of the new Southern Tier District.
Right.
Other proposals, you know, had talked about pairing Ithaca and Cornell with maybe Syracuse or Rochester. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think this is a perfectly valid way to do it. This is a good illustration of the fact that there isn't one perfect way to draw a map. That there are different ways to look at it and different ways to hold counties together. The Southern Tier. Yeah.
They don't do that.
You know, we held Ithaca together with Binghamton. That makes sense. But also having Ithaca more securely in a Southern Tier district, there's also validity to that. I think it just shows that there are several different ways, valid ways, to approach drawing these lines.
And this map pairs Binghamton with Utica, the
Correct.
Mohawk Valley, with part of the Southern Tier.
Right. Right. Now, one of the things to remember about the Burkle district as it was configured in both the Assembly majority and the Senate majority proposals is that seemed to have been a very politicized choice, not one that was really based on demographics at all, but rather seemed to have been, some might even have said vindictively, configured to disadvantage Representative Burkle. Clearly, neither our proposal nor the master's proposal falls into that trap.
Okay, and another question about a different part of the state. There's now going to be a southern Westchester, northwest Bronx district. I guess this goes back to maybe 20 years ago when the North Bronx and southern Westchester had more in common in terms of congressional representation instead of Rockland County. There's a lot of people, though, in Rockland who are former Bronx residents, and you know that has worked well for Elliot Engel, the incumbent. What's your thoughts about pairing the North Bronx and southern Westchester?
Well, obviously, it's something which we did in our proposed map, so we are comfortable with it. We think that there are demographic commonalities. We think that it makes regional sense, and we think that the North Bronx and southern Westchester are areas that would be well served by having a single representative in Congress to advocate for their interests.
Susan?
Yeah.
It's Lane Filler from Newsday.
Hi, Lane.
Hi. How would you characterize what you understand of the process going forward now? Does this map now go to the legislature, or how do you see this playing out?
No, what happens now is the court has ordered the various parties to file comments and objections to the court's proposed plan tomorrow. And then there will be a hearing next week in front of a three-judge panel. And I don't know whether the court will now move the date up from the 15th, where it's currently scheduled for the 15th, anticipating that the master's map would be ready on the 12th. So that schedule could change. But what will happen is the parties will have an opportunity to comment. The master will take their comments and objections into consideration, may revise her plan, and then the plan that she finalizes is then presented to the three-judge panel. The public has an opportunity to comment on it, and the three-judge panel could then adopt the master's plan, which is frankly most likely to happen, or not, could send it back to the master and say, change it, revise it, according to what we've heard from the public. Once the three-judge panel accepts the master's plan, they issue an order saying these are the congressional districts. And unless the legislature does something different, those are the districts in which the primary election will be held on June 26th.
Okay. Is it reasonable to expect the legislature will get scared and do something different?
Is there anything reasonable to expect with the legislature?
I know. I'm just asking.
Fine.
Okay. Thanks.